Last Thursday, President Trump announced that the United States has launched a number of strikes against ISIS in Nigeria. I read this news with dismay because this is exactly what Dr. Patricia Agupusi, today's guest at the Glenn Show, has warned against when we taped our conversation 3 weeks ago in early December. She is a wise and well-studied observer of the situation on the ground in Nigeria, being a Nigerian native herself. And I think we would do well to listen to her. Enjoy the episode.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Glenn Show. This is Glenn Loury. I'm the Emeritus Professor of Social Science at Brown University. And today we're going to be talking about something that rarely gets the clarity, depth, or attention that it deserves in the United States, and that is the ongoing violence in northern Nigeria. Violence that has taken thousands of innocent lives, including the lives of many Christian villagers. Now, if you follow the American press, you'll hear the word Boko Haram tossed around as if it were a monolithic force of Islamic extremism sweeping across Africa. Sometimes it's framed as a simple religious conflict, Muslim militants versus Christian communities. Sometimes it's invoked in our political debates here at home, with former President Trump recently suggesting that the United States ought to intervene militarily to, quote, protect Christians, close quote, in Nigeria. But these headlines and these political soundbites don't begin to capture the complexity of what's actually going on in the Lake Chad region. Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and multi-ethnic democracy with vast differences between its northern and southern regions. And the insurgency that we call Boko Haram didn't spring up out of nowhere. It emerged from a landscape shaped by weak state institutions, chronic security failures, regional inequality, and a long history of communal tensions. The story here isn't only about religion. It's also about the failures of governance, the collapse of local authority, and the vacuum that allows extremist groups to dominate the lives of ordinary people. And so, to help us understand this, I am joined today by someone who knows the terrain intimately. She is Dr. Patricia Agupusi. Dr. Agupusi is an old friend. We were colleagues at Brown University for years in the teens, and I am very fond of her, I must say, as a scholar and as a human being. She is a person who studies African governance and development. She was born and educated in Nigeria before earning her doctorate in international development in the United Kingdom. She's done fieldwork in conflict-affected regions, including among internally displaced persons who fled Boko Haram's attacks. Her research asks, what happens when a state loses its capacity to protect its citizens? What social, economic, and institutional failures make an insurgency possible? And how do Christian and Muslim communities alike experience this violence on the ground? In other words, Dr. Agupusi brings the kind of nuanced, grounded, empirically informed perspective that we try to cultivate here at the Glenn Show. So let's get past the superficial narrative. Let's get past the headlines. Let's ask what's really happening in northern Nigeria and what, if anything, it means for U.S. policy. Patricia, welcome to the Glenn Show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a great privilege to be here.
I want you to help us understand the basics of what's going on. Who is Boko Haram?
So, Boko Haram is a group that started in northeastern parts of Nigeria, mostly in Maiduguri. At least that's where their base is or has been. But they also have linked to other parts of northern Nigeria, like the northern west, but mostly operates from northeastern Nigeria.
Patricia is working from home, so we're going to be patient. I said, and perhaps it needs some explanation, I'm very fond of Patricia Agupusi because when she came as a postdoctoral fellow to Brown University in 2011, I was asked to serve as a faculty mentor and worked very closely with her, developed courses which we co-taught together, developed a summer program on Development and Inequality Studies, which we proposed and raised funds for and executed in collaboration with my political science colleague, Ashutosh Varshney, for 4 summers, bringing young scholars from around the developing world, Latin America, Asia, Africa, to Brown University for 2 weeks of intensive seminars and so on. And Patricia and I worked closely on that. Developed an Africa initiative at Brown University, where we promoted speaking engagements and conferences focused on Africa-related issues. We were responsible, Patricia and I, for bringing Wole Soyinka, the Nobel Literature Laureate Nigerian writer, to Brown University for an event, amongst other things. So we've worked closely together over the years. Hence, it's an especial pleasure to be able to receive her here at the Glenn Show. I know that she knows what she's talking about in terms of what's going on in Nigeria, not only because she's a native Nigeria from the southeast of the country, Igbo land, but also because she is someone who has spent a scholarly lifetime, studying the issues. She's been talking about Boko Haram since I first met her 14 years ago. And as I have mentioned, has been on the ground there interviewing people and observing what's going on for years and years. Okay, Patricia, welcome back. That was me filling time with the audience, telling them about our friendship and collaboration over the many years, going back to 2011 when you came as a postdoctoral fellow to Brown University. And even before then, when you were a participant in the summer seminar, BIARI, Brown International Advanced Research Institutes, which we labored in together, producing that seminar with Ashu Varshney. I was telling the audience about that, but let's get back. Where were we? You were explaining who Boko Haram are.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for that. I was talking about Boko Haram. So they're a group of radical Islamic group. They are a radical Islamic group that started in the north, specifically northeast, which is with the primary base in Maiduguri, Borno State. There has been groups like that over time. So it wasn't new to have a group like that. However, they become more potent when they join the state governor then in terms of campaign and mobilization and gain more power. And their main focus, actually, they don't call themselves Boko Haram. The name Boko Haram was a Western media tag on them because of one of their mission, or motivation, which is Western education is evil. So that's where the name comes from. However, now fast forward over 2 decades later, now they have been divided into 2 groups: the SWAP group and what they call Gen I group. Sorry, I'm catching my breath from running up then.
No
what happened with this is that the SWAT group have allegiance with the global terrorism. Then the other group work mostly internally. So in 2019, when this happened, what they did is that the SWAT group emphasized that they're going to be focusing more on Christians, attacking Christians rather than attacking Muslim. But the attack so far has been on both sides of
Excuse
both
me.
Christians.
What are you calling this group? You say swamp?
SWAP. And
SWAP.
Is abbreviation of the because they have sworn allegiance with the international terrorist group.
Okay. And they are involved in the attacks on the Christian villages and such?
No, they attack different groups. But what happened is this: the splinter. let me come back to that. Let me explain fully what they're doing. There are two JAS. They call them JAS. I want to correct some mistake I made earlier on. The splinter group which happened have to come from those that call themselves the Islamic State of West Africa province. That is why they call ISWAP, ISWAP.
I see.
And then they have the initial group that maintain their own the mission goal of initial Boko Haram, which is called JAS. So what happened is that with this division and splinter group, they have changed their modus operandi. So the ISWAP now argue that they were not gonna, they change it in the sense that they're not gonna be attacking Muslims, but rather attack Christians. But in different activity that had happened since then, that is since 2009, we have seen that the attack has been on both Christians and Muslims in the north. But they've also moved to try to recruit other terrorist groups in the country, like the so-called Fulani herdsmen, and try to work with them. But what we find out so far is that is not always working out, because there's always a conflict between different terrorist groups in Nigeria, especially in the northern parts of the country.
Okay, now you say they're attacking both Muslims and Christians. Does that mean that the religious characterization of the insurgency, Muslims against Christians, is not entirely accurate?
I can't say straightforward. That's why this is a very complex discourse and issue. It's not necessarily, I can't say rightly that they don't attack Christians, because they do. But they also attack anybody that does not believe in their radical ideology, both Christians and Muslims. And initially, most people they attack, most victims were Muslims, because the focus was in northern parts of the country, which is also predominantly Muslims. So the attack were targeted to anybody and everybody in the north, especially those that openly, Islamic clerics that openly condemn their actions. They kill, assassinate. But they also attack different government institutions like the police and the prison. They attack community to collect, communities to also take over different communities. So the initial mission and goal of the group was purely Islamization. So we cannot say that it's not a religious movement. It is motivated by religion, so it is a religious movement. But what I can say then is that the attack was not targeted only on Christians, but both Christians and Muslims.
Do you know who funds the websites where you get your news? How often have they been wrong in their reporting? What kinds of stories do they consistently leave out of their coverage? These are important questions. You can find out the answers at Ground News. It's the website and app I rely on daily to stay informed, cut through the noise, and get closer to the truth. Visit ground.news/Glenn Show to see for yourself how it works. My favorite feature of Ground News is the blind spot feed. It shows you stories that are disproportionately reported by either the left or the right. About 20 such stories every day. Here's a story on the shooting at Brown, which is ignored by the left. Brown University custodian says he reported gunmen multiple times before shooting. And here's a story covered by the left, but ignored by the right. Epstein survivor calls for Trump impeachment over Epstein files. Quote, I redact any support I've ever given to him. Close quote. For both of these and for every story, Ground News gives you a breakdown of the sources covering it, the bias of the media outlets reporting across the left, center, and right, how reliable these sources have been in the past, and who owns them. This is the kind of news analysis you won't find anywhere else. Right now, my viewers can get 40% off the unlimited access Vantage plan, which is the same plan I use. So make sure you subscribe using my link at ground.news/Glenn Show. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code when signing up. That's ground.news/Glenn Show.
How did a fringe Islamist movement become a full-blown insurgency? Where did that movement get its energy from? Who's supporting it? Is support coming from the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia or other outside influences? You know what I mean? What's the genesis of this insurgency?
I think, thanks for that question, because this is actually where I think we should examine critically. Like I said earlier on, this movement is not new in Nigeria. This type of movement is not new in Nigeria. In most northern states, especially in universities, you tend to get this type of radical movement. But they have never been blown up this way. They have never expanded to this extent. Now, where did it start? Northern Nigeria, especially the northwest, and both northwest and northeastern parts of Nigeria. Let me explain this.
Yeah.
Nigeria is divided into 6 regions. They have the major divide of south and north. The south has major 3 regions. They have the southeast, southwest, and south-south. Then you have the northeast, northwest, and north central. Northwest is predominantly Christian, which I would say could be something about 90%, roughly. Northwest is predominantly Muslim, which I would say is about more than 90% Muslim. Northeast is mixed, but still more dominated by Muslims. So, but when you move to North Central, it is more of Christian 60-40. There's no accurate data to show the exact number. So I'm making a speculation. In the North Central, you have more Christians. Or in some places like Kaduna, you have like 50-50. Well, that's what the data say. But in real sense, when you look at them in real sense, it's probably more than 50-50. But let's take it at that 50-50. So what you get is that in these places, in the Northwest, you don't usually hear a lot in terms of this type of mass, this type of radicalism, because it is predominantly Muslim. But what you get in the Northwest is mostly maybe targeted attack of individual Christians or something happening in terms of churches, which has always happened in Nigeria. Now, in the north, in the south, the 3 regions in the southeast are like more than 90% Christians. The same thing with the south. Southwest is about 30% Muslim and maybe 60% Christian mix. However, another thing we have to understand is Nigeria has a problem of a lot of schemism, where you have religious, ethnic, and regional problem. And this all cut across. So when you understand this, you come to understand what happened. In the north, people are mostly, especially northwest, people mostly identify by religion. In the south, people mostly identify by ethnicity. So where did it all start? Nigeria has a history of jihadism by Usman Dan Fodio. And this happened just before the colonial. I'm sorry I'm going back there, but that is very important to understand this background, because Boko Haram invoked Usman Dan Fodio. And they argue that they want to finish up what he started. So the Islamization...
Who is he? I'm sorry.
Usman Dan Fodio is the first person that started jihadis, at least by record, in northern Nigeria, and wanted to Islamize the entire region. This was before the colonial. But when colonialism came in, the British negotiated with caliphate and to help, and that is what stopped it. But it was incomplete jihadism because communities within the region fought against it. However, the British government, in terms of trying to amalgamate the country, negotiated with the Emirates and Caliphate in the northwest in Sokoto, and they were able to give them control of most of this northern region. And since then, there has been this type of conflict coming up in terms of people, some resisting, some community resisting, and some community accepting over time. Within this agreement is also that the Northerners must not be educated. That means, when I mean educated, is bringing Western education. So that's why in the case of the country, when you check the literacy rate in the country, is quite low. It's low because the North, literacy rate in the North is quite low. And because they were not allowed, I'm not saying that there's not literacy, but it's low. The last time I checked, it was about 30%. So this is the background. So what happened is that Nigeria become two type of states under colonial rule, whereby the North is ruled through the Caliphate. And this North including the North Central, the Northwest, and the Northeast, what we have today. And at the end of colonial rule at independent, power was handed over to the North by the British based on agreement. However, I don't want to dwell in it, but this is is a helpful background to understand where it is coming from. But since then, there has been this religious conflict based on supremacy that Islam is in order supposed to rule, and they do mobilize. Political mobilization has always been through religion in the North. So that's why we have identity by religion in the North. Then what happened is this. During the Civil War, it became an ethnic issue. What people, due to the coup that happened in 1966, see, then, which was termed Igbo coup. I don't want to get into that detail, but that was also what led to the ethnic civil war, the Biafran War, whereby because Igbos were killed in masses in the north. And then, given the fact that Igbos were also predominantly Christian, that is how we get to ethnic religious and conflict mostly. At the end of the war, targeting of Igbos continues, and also Christians in the north. And but what happened? Where is the state here? This is the environment where we come from. It's quite interesting now that when we talk about what is going on, we don't talk about this. Everybody bases it on the Boko Haram. If you're talking about mass killing of Christians, Boko Haram targeted everybody. If you're talking about mass killing of Christians in general or targeting of Christians in general in Nigeria, yes, it happens. It happens. It has been happening. It has happened in the sense that if a Christian is killed just for any make-up story, for instance, someone will be killed because, another person said that he or she said something about Quran. Nothing is going to happen to the perpetrators. Someone 2 or 3 years ago, if I'm correct, a youth copper is a graduate that is serving, and they post them in different areas, was killed by Muslims because she's a Christian. Nothing happened. historically, it has been going on. I mean, Igbos has been targeted, some Christians has been targeted, and nothing happened, no matter what. Then, when anything happen and you bring it up to the state will ignore it. Let me give you an example that happened in 2020. Nigeria was supposed to sponsor um, Miss Universe, I think, either Miss Universe or Miss World. The state got involved. That was under Obasanjo's rule. Because of that, there was a riot in the north.
Opposing the sponsorship of a Miss Universe.
Yes,
on religious grounds.
Yes, opposing the hosting in general. Because I think the state letter withdraw, but they oppose it in general. It doesn't matter. It is out. What we got is that there was riots in the north. And that riot, what happened there? Killing of Christians, burning of churches. What happened to these people? Absolutely nothing. A Christian man averted attack and killed the Muslims that attacked him. He was given a death imprisonment, a life imprisonment. Everybody have their stories.
So the official organs of the state in the North are corrupted or limited in their application of justice even-handedly, and are a part of the picture that you're trying to paint here of the conflict?
The problem is not they don't have the capacity to do something. The problem is that if it is a Christian-Muslim attack, whereby a Muslim is attack a Christian, the state will not do anything. Instead, they will defend the Muslim.
Why?
That's a good question. The reason is because of the perception, especially in the North. I have to say, these are the things happening in the North, that Muslims have the right to do whatever they want in terms of attacking Christians, because there's no other way to explain it. So this has been going on for years. That's why I'm surprised why people are talking about it this way, but it's not a bad thing. Another thing you find out is this. I remember when I was in Nigeria, I think it was 2012, when I went for a research in Kaduna. I was talking to someone from Northeast that came to visit. In fact, we all traveled back to Abuja. She's a Christian from the Northeast, and we started talking about the religious conflicts because that was why I came. She said there's a difference between Christians in Kaduna, and Christians in Borno State. In Borno State, Christians in Kaduna take literally what the Bible says. If you're slapped on the other cheek, if your jacket is taken, let it go. In Kaduna, if you're slapped, you slap back. Now, what is the importance of this story? That's actually how Christians especially in Borno State, because I have visited Borno State for years. There are some communities like Chibok is a Christian community. There are some communities in Borno State, which are like 90% Christians. They're not even allowed to govern themselves. It has to be governed by a Muslim. This lady did mention all this that time, but the interesting thing is that nothing had happened. It's still going on. She said to me, in other places, is usually a deputy governor will be a Christian, at least, and the governor will be a Muslim, obviously. But here, it's not even allowed. So that's what is going on. That is before Boko Haram became dominant in the area.
I see.
So when in Kaduna area, there are loads of killing that's been going on, which is why most of the research there has been in Kaduna, but it spread to this quiet area like Borno State. And the reason it spread wasn't necessarily because of any action by the Christians or non-action. It was just a breed. It was the base for Boko Haram. And I also have to emphasize Boko Haram is they're both resource driven, but the resource driven is just a means to the religious goal. Now, you did ask what environment that led to this. This is the environment that led to this. It is an environment whereby when Christians are killed, the state looked the other way in the north. It used to be mostly targeted against Igbos, but it's now everywhere. And I also want to say, I did say this in my research, in my paper then, that the environment, in the social environment in the country, is the outcome of Boko Haram. I mean, the idea that will it ever happen is not even a question. It's inevitable that groups like Boko Haram will happen in Nigeria. It's inevitable. Then you see in a place whereby during this time where there were mass killing of Christians, targeted burning of churches, the state didn't do anything. However, there was a small fracas in Rivers State. The government ordered the military and razed down the entire village. So you see, there's always, and this government, I have to also emphasize, is Obasanjo's government. Is a Christian president. It's not a Muslim president. But it's a pattern that has been internalized and politicized in the country. So even the Christians have to follow the same pattern to maintain their power or office.
That's so interesting.
In addition to this,
yeah, go ahead.
In addition to this, that's the environment of Boko Haram. We also have to understand this whole chatter on media, social media, the genocide did not start with Boko Haram. And if we focus on Boko Haram alone, then we don't have a case because Boko Haram, in fact, data showed that they killed more Muslims than Christians.
Yeah.
That's one. But another one, I think what we should understand is that this now, they're killing more Muslims than Christians because whenever this happened, what you tend to get is that the state looked the other way. You did ask me earlier on, who sponsored them? There's a lot of people research tend to say they're sponsored by Saudi Arabia, by other Islamic groups. I won't say categorically they are not sponsored by this group, but it is the environment that breeds them. One. Number two, politicians sponsored them. The governor of Borno State, then Shitu, was one of their sponsors. In fact, some of the people that sponsored them have come openly to say that they are sponsored and is on record, it's not a speculation. Who gave them the power and the resources? Who beholding them? Yusuf, when he was Yusuf was arrested several times before he was killed. But immediately someone else will post a bell and he will be released. And he will still be walking on the streets, targeting and killing communities, police. They raid police stations, take their ammunition. So when we talk about sponsorship, states, politicians, individual, either indirectly or directly enabling them.
Now, you've done field research with internally displaced persons. What kind of stories from these camps have stayed with you?
The internally displaced people, I did first one in Abuja. So usually what you get is that they are divided into Christians and Muslims. If you come to some areas, they are all Christians and some areas Muslims. Very few IDP centers have a mix. So what you tend to get is this, that government does not really pay attention to them. That's one thing. And this group, especially the group I visited in Abuja, they work for themselves to try to find a means of living, and most of the places they are staying are not approved. So my major take is that this group are not even treated like citizens in the country. The government wasn't doing anything, although there's a lot of agencies that we're supposed to be looking after them. They are sustained and supported by non-governmental non-governmental organizations and individuals that bring food for them. So within these groups, depending on where they are, those in Abuja are more protected. They get more resources from individuals or group or NGOs. But those people outside the Abuja centers, I didn't visit those people, but I did send my research assistants to them. They don't get much. They are attacked, sexually molested. Kids are sexual. There's a lot of things going on in there. Women are sexually molested. There are all data and literature on this. So then this is what they get, and the government does not do anything. Recently, I read that one of the centers was forcefully taken by the Fulani herdsmen, and the government did not do anything.
Now, some analysts talk about poverty and unemployment as the root cause of the insurgency and the attractiveness of Boko Haram to those who it recruits. And you're pretty skeptical of that line of argument, as I understand you. Why?
Poverty might motivate people to join them. And the question is this: why do we have poverty in a resource-rich country like Nigeria? So now you go back. That's why I take a state approach. Why do we have such poverty? People join them for fear. They are threatened. They are threatened. Why are they threatened? If you don't join them, they'll kill you and your family. It has nothing to do with poverty. It's the fear of protecting their family. Some of them are kidnapped. So I'm not saying that poverty is not there. A lot of people that join them because they provide some of these things that the state has not been able to provide for them. In my research, one of the things they provide for them maybe bike. They pay for their dowry to get married. Some of those basic things that people might not think that matters, it matters. But remember, they've already taken over these people's village. Borno State produce the best fish in the country. They depend on the lake that produces this fish. Boko Haram took over the lake. So farmers. So what do you get? People are rendered useless. So they look for a way. So by the time you can't, what can I do? Protect your family, die. So some of them join voluntarily, but most people are forced to join because they don't have a choice. And also because the state is not doing anything to protect them. When they attack people, the state does not do anything. I work with a joint task force in Borno State, for instance. And they will say, when they took Chibok girls, the military came, the Nigerian states came. We know where these kids are. We know where Boko Haram are. We try to tell them, they don't listen. So I'm digressing, but the major reason is not just poverty. It is forced. But even if you bring the instrument of poverty or economic issue, which, I'm not arguing against that, it's just another means, then you ask the question again, why?
Okay. So it could be that poverty is a result, not a cause.
No, it's not a cause. So in my work, I ask, what is the cause? The cause is because the state has not been able to do what it's supposed to do. That's the cause. Now, other instrument of sustaining them is also economics. Some people have argued because I said the poorest region, like Niger Delta, have the highest resources, at least that Nigeria is interested in, Nigerian state is interested in. In some places in Niger Delta, you don't have road pathway. Why are they not doing that? Poverty is all over the place in Nigeria.
So the solution to poverty is at hand, natural resources, but the state is unable to make the right kinds of decisions in order to get the benefits of those resources to the people.
Yeah, and I think it's deliberate. The states and they are not making any attempt to create the right environment for people to succeed. In fact, Nigerian society, Nigeria is one of those places where people do not depend a lot on the state. They just want to make their living. But when you find out that you're not even safe to make that living in a place where people like Boko Haram is, what do you expect? And the state is not doing anything to contain Boko Haram.
I want to shift the gears a little bit here and talk about U.S. politics, because I'm sure you're aware of the kinds of pronouncements that have been coming out of President Trump and the administration about doing something to address the killing of Christians in Nigeria. He's threatened the Nigerian government had better get its hands around this problem, or else we're going to have to intervene. And I can't help but ask you how that kind of talk is received in Nigeria. How do people on the ground in Nigeria react when they hear in the news from the BBC or whatever that the president of the United States is threatening to fix their problem?
You'll be surprised to hear most people, I think all the people I've spoken to in Nigeria are waiting for Trump to come in.
Waiting with open arms?
Yes.
Wow.
So, not all of them. I say people I spoke with.
Yeah.
And if you look at the social media, there are some people are saying, no, we don't want you. Nigeria is not Venezuela, is not this. The majority are waiting for Trump to come in.
This is how little confidence they have in their own government.
Oh, they have no confidence. And it's not just because of Boko Haram. Well, I have to say this. Boko Haram is not that topical in Nigeria like we are hearing it now. It's Fulani herdsmen, kidnapping, raising down of communities, villages, especially in Benue State. So yes, Nigerians are saying Boko Haram. I mean, they think that Trump is the Messiah that will come to save them. Literally, that's what is going on now. I spoke with someone yesterday. She said, I am disappointed. Some people around me, we are disappointed that Trump has not come. Now,
what would that look like? What would coming look like? A military intervention?
Exactly. Now, it's not because they want war. I want to, explain this properly.
Okay.
It's not because Nigerians want war. It's not all Nigerians that want this, I have to say. But ordinary people are fed up. And most of these people are not people that are directly affected by the kidnapping or the or their community, but people that are frustrated with economic downturn and the economic challenges. People that are affected that they can barely afford food. They felt, I spoke with a few people. The question is this: what is there? What is left? What is the worst thing that could happen? Now, there are a lot of reasons. I will put it this way. I can understand why they want that, because by the time you push them back, to say, okay, if he's going to attack, where do you think he's going to attack? And that's when they start thinking, okay, yeah. So the idea that America is coming to intervene, I want to put it this way, intervene and how did Trump put it? Viciously deal with those terrorists is well welcome, especially majority of common people in Nigeria. But more importantly, if you're from Benue State, whereby your village is raised on, it's not by Boko Haram, it's by Fulani herdsmen, at least. That's what it's saying now, but definitely not necessarily by Boko Haram. That's why I'm surprised they keep calling. If you're a pastor that tends to have mass burial all the time, what do you expect? So different people in Nigeria, in terms of general outlook, tend to welcome it. But some people are saying, those that are not expecting outright intervention or attack are saying, if this could make our state, our government to actually do something, it is welcomed.
What could the United States do, in your mind, that would be helpful in this situation?
So I don't understand. I don't support intervention in any way, but this is a welcome. If you look at what is happening for the first time in the last 15 years, our government is actually shifting a little bit. So what would the state do? American governments have an idea of what is going on. If they really want to do something, they can sanction all the politicians, all of them. I mean, the ruling class. I don't care what party, because they are the one contributing to this. Sanction the government itself, ban them from coming to moving, and also work with other states like in Europe. Because when they are banned in Europe, they move to France and all that. That will affect them. And I will say, extend this ban to their own children. Yes, it will bite them.
The idea would be to provide incentives for the political leadership to make different decisions in their capacities of governance at both the state and federal level.
Yes, because they are the one embodying the whole crisis. I'll come and explain that later. Are you asking me what the state can do?
Yeah.
Ban all the politicians, all the sitting politicians, and the ones that has left, because it did not start today. The current government inherited it, but is doing exactly what others did. And the second thing is this: no foreign aid to Nigeria. Well, Nigeria doesn't need foreign aid in the first place anyway. Because
is Nigeria receiving foreign aid from the United States?
They are receiving foreign aid. My stand on foreign aid is that countries like Nigeria or South Africa don't need foreign aid. Let me give you a case in hand in terms of Nigeria. In 2014-15, Nigeria voted $2 billion to buy weapons from the US. One individual squandered the entire money. It's not a speculation. It was on all over the news in Nigeria. America knows about it, which is why they suspended it at the time. Now, at the end, we have new government, and they still gave Nigeria, I think, 500 million worth of aid, which is mostly military. If you can squander 2 billion, one person, 2 billion, why do you need loan to buy the military when you have the money? It doesn't make sense. So US is not really happy. They have an idea of most of the things. One of the things that was the threat was it's going to publish all the sponsors' name. I know some people that are sponsored because it's out there. Then publish the name. But nobody's doing that. That's another way. Publish the name. Nigerian will know, but at least this time around, it's not going to just be speculation. Nigeria can work with the military. I mean, the US can work with the military because within the military, there are well corrupt ones that like this thing to be going. In fact, in my research, in 2015 or so, going on under Jonathan, I'm saying it publicly because it's also my paper. They talk about how the military has been infiltrated by Boko Haram. America knows that. American government knows that. Because when they talk about attacking or targeting the terrorists know about it before they get there. So when it comes to intelligence, it is very flawed in the sense that even if they get the right intelligence, the terrorists know everything before anything happens. And that's another reason American government suspended help to Nigeria at the time. Unfortunately, 10 years later, the same thing is still going on. Boko Harams are not persecuted. They're not allowed to pass through the legal process. So if American governments want to help, they have to force these names to be out. They can also work with Nigerian governments, especially to use the incentive of get out all the names and let them out. They have to be out of the government. That could help. They can also work directly with some of the military. They know the military personnel and officers that actually want to address this problem. They can work with them. We know some things America have done in the US, in Nigeria, American government has done in Nigeria. So if they really want to help, they can do that. Because I did say, America, if you want to help, there's so many ways you can help. You can also give Christians refugee status. Are they going through hell? They are going through hell. If you think there's anything like a targeted attack or genocide, whatever it is called, yes, there is a targeted attack on Christians. People from Benue State don't have a place. In fact, we have 8 million displaced people in Nigeria now. Most of them are from Fulani headsmen. So if you think of helping, these are the way you can help.
Who are Muslims, I assume?
I mean the displaced. Pardon?
The Fulani.
Fulani are predominantly Muslims. No, not predominantly, are Muslims.
Yeah.
Fulani herdsmen are Muslims. The reason for the conflict between herdsmen and farmers, which is actually what is taking most of the life now, and the displacement is the attack, started with environmental issue, where to graze their animals. Now back to state capacity. State can easily make a law that do this, prevent this to happen, but it doesn't. They've encroached to places in the southeast and southwest, but predominantly in Benue State, which is central. Now you hear every time, if you look at the news now, you probably see another village has been razed down. The government doesn't even visit. The one that happened in July happened in a week, 2 villages completely razed down. Why does it seem like it's a Christian genocide? Because farmers are predominantly Christians. So when you raise down a village of farmers, you're raising down a village of Christians too.
But it's about the conflict between herdsmen and farmers, not about the conflict between Muslims and Christians.
No. Yeah, that's what it is. It is herdsmen and farmers. But the conflict between herdsmen and farmers are also enabled by the state. That's another thing. Why would a village, a whole village of 300 people dying in one day, one night. The last one that happened, they say it was they sprayed a gas and they kidnapped the people, and the state did not do anything.
I noticed in your suggestions about what the U.S. might do, sanctioning politicians and their children, and working with the military, you don't talk about military action by the United States on the ground in Nigeria.
No, absolutely not. And I also think maybe people that work with Trump administration have found out that sending military intervention in Nigeria is absolutely impossible. Where would you do that? Where? If they want to target the terrorists, they work with the government. They know the intelligence. Are you gonna send a bomb to where? They're no more in the forest where you can just send a bomb. So you throw a bomb, you kill probably innocent people that are trying to find a place to have some peace, trying to find something to eat. It's not even in any way realistic.
Yeah. Where is the United Kingdom, or more generally the European Union, in this discussion? I mean, Nigeria is a former colony of the British Empire and so forth. Do they have anything to say in this?
Everybody is self-interested. Every state is self-interested. I don't blame EU or United Kingdom. The highest they would do is to say something or make some rhetoric about, we don't like what you're doing, but there's really no practical action. To be fair, personally and realistically, nobody can help Nigeria except Nigeria. One, EU is going through their own socioeconomic challenges. UK economy is in shambles and they're having their own issue. And you expect them to come and intervene in any way and help you. The current president has made friends with France, and France linked African friends, given that its former colonies are running away, so they are losing the royalty they are getting. So any African government that comes in is for their own benefit, not for your own benefit. They know all these things that had been happening, not just in Nigeria, they contributed to it. So why do you need them to help you when they've not helped? They need you to help them. So when you look at it in the way of what is EU doing, I don't know what EU is doing except thinking about their own citizen and how they can help their own citizen. If that means you fighting and we getting the benefit, that's perfectly all right.
Finally, Patricia, what in this situation gives you hope? What is the best case scenario for the next 10 years in Nigeria, if anything?
I know when we look at the issue, it seems very complicated. The issue of security in Nigeria seems very complicated. And yes, fairly it is. It's not what you hear on the media. Definitely not. But what makes it more complicated is the way it has been managed. It's not because the Nigerian government or the state does not have institutions or the resources to do something. But what had happened is that each government comes in and find out they will make a lot of money from the violence. They maintain it. And that money including foreign aid, because then that money also means that putting more money in security. There's something they call security votes in Nigeria, which is each state that has conflict tends to get billions of naira every year. And what does that mean? If conflict stops, then you don't get that much. So if anything that is going to happen is let there be some transparency. Remember, the security votes, you're allowed to use it anyhow you want without any accountability. So violence become entrepreneur. And what we call is it political entrepreneur becomes an economy system. So that's one thing that could happen is that if the government could put some accountability in that, then maybe people will reduce how much they spend, or violence will become less lucrative. Number two, there's something they call kidnapping economy in Nigeria. It's mostly fueled by the economic challenges. Nigerians by nature are highly entrepreneur in nature. They don't depend on governments in many things except the basic, or less restriction in finding their means of livelihood. So if the government can just make the environment a little bit palatable, for instance, build the roads, let there be constant electricity, people will find their way. The economic problem will reduce. The most important one is this: contain and stop the security challenges. They can do it. Last week, a church, they kidnapped about how many people from a church in Kwara State? When this whole thing was going on, it was just calls. They only made calls and everyone was returned. That means the state spoke with the kidnappers. So if they can call the incentive, which is easy to do, that you give to people that perpetuate this violence and terror to other people, it will stop. So major problem with Nigeria is that the government are benefiting, politicians are benefiting from what is going on. If the incentives can be cut off, it will easily be addressed. That's number one. Number two, in the next 10 years, things might change. Why? If Trump keep making these threats, it will definitely make them do something. Yeah, I'm against any attack on Nigeria or even any external intervention. But fair enough, the threat has been motivating them. They're being forced to do something. The government to do something. So if that continue to happen, and start working with different communities, then in the next 10 years, this security issue, in fact, to be frank with you, Nigeria can deal with this security issue in less than a year if they want to. They can if they want to. So the political will to do it is what is the problem. The economic incentive is what is reducing or removing the political will. So if the incentive is removed, we have a chance. But if not, I'm not sure where Nigeria will be. I'm a bit optimistic, to be fair. We still have democracy in the country. But the idea that we let everyone come and mess up the country for 8 years, it does not give us hope. But the good thing is that if there's a mobilization and collective action that actually is this rhetoric from the American president, if we help to mobilize and put some pressure, there is hope that something positive might come out of it.
All right. Well, thank you, Patricia. My guest has been Dr. Patricia Agupusi, who teaches the political economy of development at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts, and who is an old friend who I have been very happy to welcome here at the Glenn Show. Thanks so much for your wisdom and your surprising optimism about the possibility that the U.S. could play a positive role in resolving this problem.
Thank you for having me. U.S. can play a positive role, but not by
not by bombs.
Not by bombs. Yeah, they can, not by bombs. But at the end of the day, it is Nigeria that will have to do it.
All right, then. Until next time, take care.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And good seeing you again.
And you.